I actually want to say before I even introduce Deepak Bagla, the person who is our keynote speaker, our ending keynote speaker, is somebody who I'm warning you. If you pack your bags and move to India after hearing Deepak Bagla's talk, don't blame me, because it is so powerful, the story that he has put together, being in the heart of the Indian ecosystem. Deepak has led the Invest India team for many years now. Many of you know him. And what he has seen and put together is something that we will never have a full insight into unless we have somebody like him here with us. So I just want to mention to you that Deepak's talk on the whole sort of the India stack and where it is taking the nation, the national ecosystem, the tech ecosystem, is something that's had like 10 million views. This is something that has so resonated around the globe that it is something, I really want you to listen to Deepak's talk very carefully and take some careful notes. So here is his intro. Deepak has a professional career of over 3 decades with the World Bank, Citibank, and private equity, and has held responsibilities across Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. In 2015, he was appointed the Managing Director and CEO to establish Invest India as the National Investment Promotion Agency of the government, and during his 8-year tenure, the agency has been acknowledged as the world's most awarded IPA. He has been a member of several high-level government committees as well. He's been a member and special invitee to the official bilateral CEO forums with various countries. He is the elected president of the Geneva-based World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, WIPA, which is the single largest investment platform with a membership of the national IPAs of over 105 countries. So Deepak Bagla, if we get super energized by you and end up, taking the next flight to India, apologies, but I so look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you very much. Really appreciate this. Thank you, guys. Thank you for staying late in the evening today. And I know there is another keynote. But before that, Asha, thank you for getting us all together. It really means a lot. And I heard Lakshmi speaking a little about how important it is to tell the India story. It's ambassadors like you which make job easier for all of us. Because it truly is a fascinating story. And as I've said it earlier, it's probably the most unprecedented story in the history of the free world, both in terms of the pace at which this change is happening and the scale at which this change is happening. And I think what Asha wanted me to do today is to speak to you about your future, about the next 9,000 days. 15th August 2047 is when one of the youngest democracies on the planet will turn 100 years old. It will also be the largest human resource on the planet. 1.6 billion human resource individuals. Average age, 29. It'll be the youngest in the world all the way up to 2070. And the next 9,000 days, 90% of this juggernaut will be built in these 9,000 days. This story is unprecedented. And let me first introduce to you the main protagonist of the story. The Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo, was in India just at the end of March. She met Prime Minister Modi. She spent an hour and a half with him, came out and said, the most popular leader in the world with a reason. And what was that reason? Let me introduce that. Tim Cook was in India last month, actually last week, just 2 weeks ago. And he opened 2 of his flag stores in India, in Mumbai and in Delhi. By the way, how many of you have an iPhone 14? Good, the next time you buy one, it's going to be made in India. Don't forget that. And what he said, that it is probably the most extraordinary journey and the most extraordinary run. This is what I'm going to share about with you. as to what are those blocks which have been put in place to see this run and this journey ahead. Asha, I've been following some of your blogs, and you had a very interesting one the other day about which countries will go into recession in 2023. The only one which had 0 on it, and it was a Bloomberg Wire, I think, study, was India. Let me tell you what happened in India. The largest ever, in aviation history, the largest ever order of 470 wide-body aircrafts was given by an airline in India in January. $1 billion real estate project next to Delhi was sold out in 48 hours. A new company, a car company introducing a new car model, about $25,000 to $27,000, not very cheap by India context, had 100,000 bookings in 60 minutes. This is where this engine of growth is coming in from. You know, and it's very important to know what happened during the past 36 months. We've all forgotten March 2020, when the virus hit us. It looks unimaginable, it seems so far away, but it was probably the most brutal time any of us have lived in our lives. We went into the virus being the fastest growing large economy on the planet. We are out of this virus being the fastest growing large economy on the planet. And what happened during those 24, 30 months is very important to know. And that's where I introduced to you the protagonist of this story. And please remember, it was one of the biggest challenges which was faced by anyone else in any other country. 1.4 billion people, 640,000 villages, and to see how we can contain that virus with no playbook. And that was a time, you know, I remember on the 20th of March, we did not have enough PPEs for ourselves. By 30th of July, we had PPEs not just for ourselves, but to export to the rest of the world. We did not have enough vaccines for ourselves, but in another 180 days, we had vaccines for ourselves and to support many other countries in the world. We supported other countries with over 130 countries with medicines. And don't forget, we were taking care of 1.4 billion of our own. We ran the largest vaccination program in the history of mankind. In fact, on one single day, the 17th of September 2021, we did 25 million vaccinations on that single day. And you know what was the total of the rest of the world? Asha, the total for the rest of the world was 6.5 million. That is how we celebrated the birthday of our Prime Minister. That is how the protagonist of this story moves. His focus was saving lives, saving livelihood. I've just told you about the saving lives. Let me tell you what was happening on the livelihood. And it was both of these together because of which you walk out of one of the most terrible disasters of the world, being the leader as the fastest growing large economy on the planet. The world's largest food grain support program, 800 million individuals were given food grain for the entire period, and even now they're getting it. And remember the diversity. I told you, 640,000 villages, a subcontinent. I told you about the vaccination program. Let me tell you the other interesting things where livelihood was being concerned. The Honorable Prime Minister launched the Jal Jeevan Mission in August 2019, just a little before the virus hit us. It's the world's largest water program. The program was that in the next 60 months, starting from August 2019, 900 million individuals will get a drinking water tap access. And please remember, a drinking water tap access is not as simple as just twisting that tap and getting the water. It's sourcing that water, it's delivering that water, it's piping, it's quality, it's monitoring, it's wastewater, it is recycling. Just think of the complexity of that project. And even in the midst of that unprecedented lockdown, this project was ahead of schedule. Even during that lockdown, it reached out to an extra 250 million individuals. This story did not stop. Let me tell you some other interesting points of what happened during that time. I have 65 million MSMEs, the small and medium enterprises. They're the heart of India. 30% of my GDP comes from them. Close to half of them adopted digitization. And you know what has happened? Each one of them who's adopted digitization, their operating profits have gone up by 40%, only with a little 10% extra cost. Let me tell you how the government was working and how that leader was taking it forward. New programs were being set up to make India a manufacturing hub. New policies were created. New ease of doing measures were created. In fact, we have a policy where 14 different sectors, including electronics, is getting special measures. And today, from being an importer of mobile phones, in a period of 48 months, India is a net exporter of mobile phones. Some of the largest factories of the world, or the biggest players, are now in India. That is how India was moving. And the most interesting thing which really interested me, on 20th March 2020, I had 55 million dematerialized accounts, the investment accounts of each individual. That is how capital was coming into the country or into the companies. Last year in August, just 36 months, actually not even 36, just 30 months, the number was 100 million. In that lockdown. And why is this critical? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because capital is what we require to sustain the growth which we take forward. And this is where it is coming in, just to put it in perspective on how the potential is. In the US, you have about 60% retail households investing. China is about 40, we are just 5. You see the long runway which we are now going to cover. This story, ladies and gentlemen, has just begun. And think of that the largest downloaded app of COVID was in India, the Arogya Setu app. It was because of that digitization we had the ability to contain that virus, which even the highest levels of the health organizations of the world had said that the story of the world will depend on how well India handles it. And today, everyone in the world has acknowledged that India's leadership and India's resilience was the one which has shown the way for the rest of the world to manage such challenges. And it's the managing of these challenges which shows you how it moves ahead. You've heard of the digitization. For me, digitization is not just about a few technologies getting together. Digitization is about access. Digitization is about democratization. Digitization is about giving you the right to be able to participate in growth and to partake from that growth. It is about transparency. It is about pace. It is about governance. Digital India was launched by the Prime Minister in July 2015. We're just about 100 months away from that. On that day, I was 122 globally on per capita data consumption. Last year, I was number 1. More per capita data consumed than the US and China put together. That is the pace at which this juggernaut is moving. That is the pace at which, and please remember, digitization is further fueling the pace and the demand and the growth. Let me give you another example. Real-time transactions, the most important parameter to see the growth and to get the pulse rate of an economy. In 2021, we did 48 billion real-time transactions. 41% of the world's transactions happened in India. Number 2 was China, about 16.5 to 17 billion. Last year, my 48 moved to 89 billion. China, again at about 17. In fact, if you add the real-time transactions of all the countries from number 2 to number 11, is less than what India did in last year itself. And please remember, real-time transactions shows you the pace at which an economy is moving. It shows you the ability to be able to achieve far more at far less because the same currency is moving at a much faster pace. And it is this digitization and which we spoke about. 1 billion people with a mobile phone, 1 billion people with a unique identity number, 1 billion people attached to a bank account. In India, today you can open a bank account in under 5 minutes. A SME, a medium and a small enterprise can get a loan in under 59 minutes. These are just some of the elements of how this digitization is taking forth this growth. To my mind, this is the first time in my history that I have each and every individual empowered. And that empowerment has come through this digitization. And that empowerment is the power of this juggernaut on 15th August 2047, 1.6 billion of them. And let me give you, because we are here on a startup conference and there'll be a lot of discussion on startups. You were the guys, this was the shores where the startup story of the world started. You started it in the 50s and the 60s. And in fact, we have to thank you all because each one of you is an ambassador. I'm told today 10% of unicorns in the US have an Indian who's involved with them. And in fact, of immigrants who've done double unicorns each, 4 of those 10 are from India. And I have to thank you all for that. But let me just tell you what is happening back home. The story of Startup India started on 16 January 2016. The Honorable Prime Minister had in his mind, I don't want job seekers. I want to create job creators. He picked up on the story of entrepreneurship of India and launched Startup India. 16 January 2016. How long are we from that? 7 years, 84 months. India today, number 3 in the world in number of startups, number 2 in the world, number 3 in the world in number of unicorns, number 2 in the world in number of startups, and number 1 in the world with new startups adding every day. In fact, Carl, 1 of every 11 unicorn in the world has been born in India. And a large part of that is through digitization. Because the first time you've been able to access that market, for the first time in human economic history, a brand new company got 100 million new customers in 180 days. I said that the last time, the company called me and corrected me. It was in 165 days. And let me tell you the real story of that startup. And Asha, this is something which will be close to you. In just these 90 odd months, 50%, 48% of my startups are from tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. The engine of growth of this juggernaut of this new India has moved beyond the metros. It's now every of that village in the small town, which is the engine of this growth, which is what this Prime Minister wanted, which is what he's doing. He has created each individual as an engine of growth. And you know what is more interesting? About 40% or 45% of these have at least one woman director. And the fastest growing segment in my T3 and T4 and T2 cities, and I know I've got 3 minutes to go, but I'll just take 2 more in that. And Asha, you'll really like this one, are led by women. Today I have 7,300 startups in those small towns and cities which are only led by women. What has happened for inclusion in that country, and because I'm short of time, let me not even go into that, has been huge. It is the empowerment of each and every individual. Let me quickly touch upon the opportunity which India offers, because of which we are there. Every minute, 30 people are moving from a village to a city in India. 11% of the world's population lives in my villages. In the next 10 years, I will be creating a new United States of America. And let me just give you one example. In 2019, do you want to take a guess how many people traveled on my railways? And why it is important to understand this, because the higher the mobility of a society, the higher its ability to adapt new technology and adopt to it. We sold 8 billion tickets in that year. We moved the entire universe in 1 year. That is the opportunity which is being created in India. I have 2 more points to go, and I know I have 2 more minutes, but I'll be short. This opportunity has now been acknowledged by the world. Ever since 2015, each and every year, we set a new record for our FDI. Every year. Even in the midst of the lockdown, we received the highest ever FDI we received in our history. And you know what's the record? It came from 162 countries. 162 countries trust India, its leadership, its promise, its future, and their ability to partner with it. It's come across 61 sectors. It's unprecedented. The breadth of this opportunity is growing, and it's grown across 31 states and union territories. I have 36 of them in total. And let me tell you where this juggernaut is hurtling. From 2015 to 2021, in terms of our GDP, we moved ahead of Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK. Number 5 today. We are hitting on the shores to be number 4 by next year. The first trillion took me 60, the second trillion took me 8 years, the third trillion took me 5 years. My trillion number 5, 6, and 7 will be done in 2 years each. My trillion 8 will be shorter than that. If this juggernaut continues at the pace where it is going as we speak, we are looking at over $30 trillion on 15th August 2047. But let me tell you why I think that number is understated. My GDP is the aggregation of the GDP of each of my states and their growth. I have 28 states and 8 special territories. If I look at the average growth of these from 2015 to 2019, the average growth, 22 of them grew at more than 10%. And in fact, 3 of them grew at more than 13%. If I just add these 22 and project it at that average growth rate, I'm coming to a number of $42 trillion. With the balance, another 9. And let me tell you the golden years, if you really want me to tell you the potential of that. If I just looked at which was the highest they achieved in any of the years, which is to show you the potential which they've got, 32 of them have touched a high of over 10% in a specific year. 10 of them over 15%. 4 of them over 20%. Ladies and gentlemen, this story has just begun. When you were talking of people coming over, just about a few months ago, I was on a platform with a young 21-year-old lad called Rishabh. He studied here, came back to India, and started a small startup in Sitamarhi in Bihar. And you know what he does? He helps startups in and around his region to come up the curve and help them get capital. When we started in West India, we had the same experience. We started with 3, we have over 450. I have a colleague of mine sitting here, Siddharth. Each one of them, and by the way, 62% of them have come from small towns and cities and villages of India, but each one of them worked hard, got to the best schools and colleges in India and across the world. They all came back and have taken huge cuts, only to build a new India. This is the power of a protagonist, of a leader, of a resolute leader who has a clear objective of taking this society to its potential, who has created that resilience in that society and has created an economy which is robust, a growth which is unstoppable. Ladies and gentlemen, just 9,000 days from today, 90% of that juggernaut will be created. We today are the most open economy on the planet, with the private sector having the role to play in each and every sector of my economy. This is the future, and this future is now. Come and join us. Thank you.